Hi everyone, welcome to day 13 of our blog about John's Gospel and the themes that we find within it, and this first theme of looking at justice. Today we're going to be looking at a passage from an Old Testament prophet called the prophet Micah, from which we get some very famous lines. But first I want to ask you a question. How easy do you find it to forgive? Well, we can all be hurt from time to time, and from time to time we may have hurt others. Forgiveness is a tricky business. Sometimes we can confuse forgiveness with forgetting. We think that we have to forget in order to forgive, and because we can't forget, we find we cannot even forgive. But how hard do we find forgiveness? Well, this was strangely part of the story of the people of Israel, because forgiveness is like a gateway and a window into the heart. Israel at the time of Micah had decided it pretty much knew its own way, and it had decided that it knew what it needed to do, and indeed carried on doing it. Micah lived at the same time as another, perhaps better known Old Testament prophet called Isaiah. And into this there is what most prophets are called to do, which is to call the people back to a truer way of walking with God. So Micah announces God's judgment upon Israel's way of life. But in amongst it all, he not only speaks words of judgment, he speaks also words of hope. And it's these words of hope that have been handed down from generation to generation. I'm going to read you just a little bit of our reading for today, which is Micah chapter 6, verses 1 to 8. This is what it's got to say. Listen then to what the Lord says. Stand up, plead my case before the mountains, says God. Let the hills hear what you have to say. Hear, you mountains, the Lord's accusation. Listen, you everlasting foundations of the earth, for the Lord has a case against his people. He is lodging a charge against Israel. My people, what have I done to you, says God? How have I burdened you? Answer me. I brought you up out of Egypt, and redeemed you from the land of slavery. I sent Moses to lead you, also Aaron and Miriam. My people, remember what Balak, king of Moab, plotted, and what Balaam, son of Beor, answered. Remember your journey from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteous acts of the Lord. With what shall I then come before the Lord, and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with 1,000 rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I offer even my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? No. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Those last lines, to act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. And they're actually interconnected. And what God is saying through the prophet Micah is, please don't just think you can pay me off. What I look for in people is a willingness to have a changed heart. And this is where it speaks into the issue of forgiveness. To love mercy is actually a gateway into the heart, because it means that we can understand our pain, our hurt, and it may be immense. But we choose to go beyond holding people simply to account, to finding somebody to blame here, somebody to be responsible here, and actually to seek instead an improved world beyond judgment. And that can be hard. We can try and do so as a matter of will. We can try and say this is the right thing, the good thing. Or we can indeed realise that we all fall short of our own expectations. And if we fall short of our own expectations of ourselves, then we fall short clearly of what God might want for us. And in that place of humility before God, realising I am less than perfect, I can discover his forgiveness of me. And if I can discover his forgiveness and acceptance of me, well, maybe I can cut some other people just that little bit more slack and realise that they too may make mistakes and let us down. And then seek rather to put my efforts into trying to build a new and better world. Many people during this time are carrying huge burdens of anger, of hurt, of pain, of feeling let down by others and by society and even by God. The real question Micah presents to us is, can we then go beyond that and dream of a new world? And in that dream, allow others to walk into it, and indeed for ourselves to walk into it, not out of our own efforts, but out of his. Have a good rest of the day. God bless. Bye.